This project has spanned 2 continents, 5 months, and is 600 subscribers late. It's dedicated to everyone out there who got behind on a project, started feeling really bad about it, didn't want to do it because they felt bad, got farther behind, and, eventually you had to face the music, and you got around to it. So here it is. Sorry about that, John. This was supposed to be part of the 1,000 subscriber giveaway, and it's a little bit late. I'm sure you've been thinking, this deal's getting worse all the time. But it is finally done, and it's going to be on its way over to you shortly. Now, I know everyone raves about GW quality, and it certainly is really good, but just look at these details. This stuff is really top tier. Let's go ahead and talk about Vader, or this, he's a Librarian. Yeah, Librarian, Force Librarian. This model was requested by John over at Blood Angels Commander. He won that 1,000 sub giveaway, and he asked if I could do a Librarian proxy from Wargame exclusives. I started this model off, like so many of my others, with the Zenithal Prime. If you want to try this at home, and you don't have an airbrush, you can do it with rattle cans. Or you can just use the dry brush, and you can dry brush white over top of black, starting from the top and working your way down. Going forward from there, I'll be adding my color. I'm going to be working off a triadic red, blue, green color scheme. For the armor, I'm going to be working in very small sections. What this is going to do for me is allow me to wet blend each panel. This does take a lot longer, but the end effect is definitely worth it, as this gives me way more control over the final look and outcome. As for the cape on the back, I wanted to bring in more blacks, pay a little more homage to the Vader side of things. The armor is going to wind up primarily blue. That's what it's going to look like anyway. It's just going to look like the black is shadow. So I want to tie that black back into the project and make it a little more of an emphasis. Using just coal black and bold titanium white, I worked my way through the initial blends. Wet blending is honestly pretty straightforward. I'm just going to put down my base color, and then I'm going to add my blue to the top edge and work it down into the black, creating a nice smooth transition. And then I'll come back and I'll do that again, and probably a third time, each time going up in value, getting a little bit brighter. It's going to give a similar appearance to if I had simply layered paint going up. And then, to get that maximum contrast, I'm going to go ahead and put in a white highlight, or a white edge highlight, all the way around this armor. I followed that up with a stylized pattern. I used hundreds and hundreds of slashes, multiple values to create a rough looking surface. I feel like this came out extremely visually striking. I love it. I get that it might not be for everybody, but if you want to try this on some cloth next time, go for it. It's really pretty simple, and it gives you a really unique look in the end. In order to add some more pop to the cloak, I'm going to be using some bold pyro red and some yellow. This will also be used on the sword and on the chest piece later on, tying it all together. In this application, I'll be using them thinned down and layered up in several different spots. For the most part, these are going to be on the high points, but there are going to be several that are there just for visual interest. From there, it's on to metallics. I definitely won't be overusing this, as the majority of this model is the armor, leather, and cloth. For those few areas that I will be painting with this, I'll be starting with copper, and then adding silver as the highlight color, slowly mixing into that copper to get a nice pop off those metallic parts. I'm going to have to overplay my hand a little bit here, because I'll be using varnish later on. It's going to really knock these down and take away some of that metallic look. Up next are the browns. For this, I'm going to be using dark umber. It's going to be mixed with white and black, the same I used in the cloaks. I'm going to be using this on the parchment, his holster, and the belts. I'm going to use this technique of blending the colors rather than grabbing 5 different shades of brown, because I wanted to reduce the number of pots floating around, mostly so that if I ever try and match this model in the future, I don't have to be trying to remember what 30 pots of paint I used on it. But sometimes while I'm doing this, I just find that it's simpler to go with fewer. A final touch to the parchment is going to be to add a bee to it. The Librarian could honestly fit in any army, but this one is going for the Blood Angels. So I'm just going to put a little bee on there, make it from ball, have a nice little time with it, do something interesting to break up that large section of parchment. And next up is that all-forgiving Nuln Oil step. What I'm going to be doing is a much more targeted, restrained application, mainly focusing on the metallics and the leather. The bulk of my heavy shading was already done, especially in that armor, just by using those wet blends. For his sword, his laser sword, his lightsaber, I couldn't quite make it look like a lightsaber. And I wasn't really looking to convert on this one. I just wanted to use the model as is since it's really such a beautiful sculpt. So I chose to take a chance and try something I haven't done before. It's the Molten Sword. Something that looks like it's still glowing with that internal fire, that heat from the forge. In order to pull this off, what I'm going to be doing is stippling. I'll be coming in and creating a dark section around the exterior where it would naturally cool first, giving that nice black look. From there, I'm going to be getting some modulation and some variation in the color just by stippling my colors in, starting with red, working up from that cold, dark exterior all the way to a white hot in the center. And I'm definitely happy with how this turned out. For the first crack at it, it definitely looks good. Now it's time to go over to my Librarian's prize, the head of a slain Drukhari raider. Apparently, the space elves can't avoid Imperial entanglements. I'll be keeping this head fairly simple, starting with green, working up through yellow, trying to get a nice smooth transition and something that'll tie into the base. He'll have some blue shades on, which will tie into that blue armor. Then, for the hair, I'm going to use yellow. This is going to tie into the high points on the cloak, a little bit on his sword, and a little bit on his chest. The base is going to be staying fairly straightforward. It's a big piece, lots going on. It'd be really easy to overpower the model, draw your attention down, away from the model into the base. So in order to avoid that, we're not going to go 100% on the base. While I wait for that paint to dry, I'm going to go ahead and get this head glued in place. All it takes is a little drop of super glue, nothing much. Whenever you glue stuff onto an area like this, don't use anything thin. No super thin, it's just going to run all over that arm, and it's going to really ruin the paint that you've already got on there and all that work you did. And of course, you can't hold this in without it getting a little messy. The blood is going to give me a chance to really tie those reds in with the sword and the cloak as well. Back over to the base now that it's fully dry. We're going to do some dry brushing to pick out some of these raised details. If I were a smarter man, what I would have done is I would have done the basilicanum gray on the stones and then done my dry brushing. That would have given me the same highlight at the same time, less effort, and then it would have the added bonus of giving me a little bit of that OSL glow hitting those rocks. The last painting step in this project is to tie these two pieces together. I'm going to use a little bit of thinned down green and yellow Dollarani ink to create some OSL glow on the bottom of the cape and the lower armor sections. Things like this really help sell the fact that the figure is in the world on the base and it's not just standing there. If there's all this warp energy floating around below him, there's going to be something spilling up. Now in order to actually get this guy on the base, I'm going to use a little bit of paint on my pins. This is going to give me 2 points where I can see that I need to drill. It's easier than just drilling and guessing. Once that's drilled out, I can just put a little dot of super glue in each of them, get those pins recessed in there real nice so that the feet are flush, and then this guy is ready to go dispense the Emperor's judgment. Which Emperor? Only he knows, and he'll never tell.